The decree came down from the Galactic Council with all the cold finality of a gravestone epitaph. No projectile weapons in space. The edict was absolute, enforced with the same rigorous scrutiny as the laws against atmospheric destabilization or unsanctioned AI development. Every species understood that warfare in a vacuum was dangerous enough without stray bullets tearing through vital life support systems. For most species, it was an inconvenience at worst. The Zelthari could generate plasma bursts with their exoskeletal glands. The Uldren relied on telekinetic force. The Drathi, a warlike reptilian race, carried bioengineered shock weapons woven into their chitinous armor. Humans, however, had built their entire military history on one simple principle. If you wanted something dead, you shot it. Now they couldn't. Captain Elias Rourke sat in the cramped command chamber of the USS Venture, rubbing his temples as he stared at the holographic briefing. The colony on Vega was under siege. The Drathi had claimed the planet in a illegal but predatory move, staking a claim, sending a fleet, and giving the humans a grace period to evacuate before they started raising infrastructure. The usual galactic red tape. By the time the Council intervened, the planet would be lost. Rourke was no stranger to unwinnable scenarios. He had the scarred knuckles and prematurely grayed temples to prove it. But this one took the damn cake. No guns, he muttered. No rail rifles, no slugs, no coil guns. Hell, even a high-speed nail gun violates the treaty. Across the table, Dr. Talia Fong adjusted her glasses and scrolled through her datapad. That's correct. The Council's definition is clear. Any kinetic weapon with a muzzle velocity above standard atmospheric throwing speeds qualifies as a firearm. She glanced up, which means they've effectively crippled our military doctrine. Great, said Javi Jax Mendez, sprawled across his chair like he belonged in a bar rather than a war briefing. So what's the plan? Throw really hard. Kip Watanabe grinned, their ever-present lollipop clicking against their teeth. Could work. Humans are the only species with Major League Baseball. Rourke sighed, pushing the hollow projection aside. The plan, as of 5 minutes ago, was to take whatever weapons we could smuggle past the Council's inspectors and hope for the best. But that's off the table. His gaze swept across the team, which means we need another way. Silence. Then Jax let out a low whistle. We're about to get real creative, aren't we? 2 hours later. The Venture dropped into Vega 4's orbit. The vast jungle world spread out beneath them like an emerald ocean. The colony's distress signals still pulsed. Short bursts of light from the outpost beacon. The Drathi blockade had not yet begun orbital bombardment, which meant negotiations were still in play. For now, Rourke stood at the loading bay, his arms crossed as he surveyed the cargo they had to work with. Civilian tools, survey equipment, industrial supplies, not a weapon in sight. He turned to Foam. We've got power tools, mining gear, and food rations. How do we turn this into a war effort? She frowned, deep in thought. Repurpose mining lasers for directed energy. Use sonic pulses from seismic scanners for disruption. Maybe set up high-speed drones as kinetic interceptors. Jax leaned against a crate, rubbing his chin. The Drathi have no idea what they're up against, do they? Kip grinned. Not even a little. Rourke exhaled. This wasn't a fight they could win conventionally. But that was the thing about humans. They never fought fair. All right, he said. Let's get to work. The first Drathi assault came at dawn. Vega 4 sky was a deep violet when the reptilian warbands emerged from the dense jungle, their massive frames outlined by the bioluminescent flora. Their armor, a dark fusion of chitin and alloy, glowed with the pulsating charge of bioelectric weapons. They advanced in perfect formation, silent, methodical, confident. They had reason to be. Humans were outgunned. But the Drathi had never fought humans without guns before. All right, people, time to get creative. Rourke crouched behind a hastily erected barricade of supply crates, watching the enemy's approach through a drone feed. Behind him, Jax was busy tying a bundle of industrial cables together, humming under his breath. Any chance we just, talk this out? Jax asked, looping a final knot. Rourke smirked. We are talking. He gestured to Kip, who was setting up what looked suspiciously like a jury-rigged slingshot. only much larger and dangerously reinforced. See, Kip said, tightening the final bolt. It's just that our words are going to be very kinetic. Foam adjusted her wrist tablet, monitoring the seismic charges she'd buried beneath key choke points. If the Drathi advance in formation, we'll detonate these and destabilize their footing. Should disorient them long enough for Phase 2. Jack secures his makeshift rope trap and dusted off his hands. And Phase 2 is... Rourke smiled. You'll see. The Drathi warbands advanced without hesitation, their disciplined march unwavering. Their leader, a hulking brute with burnished red scales, raised a clawed hand. Surrender your claim. The alien's voice boomed through an amplified translator. You cannot fight us. Kip, crouched behind the slingshot, whispered, Man, I love when they say stuff like that. The moment the lead warrior took another step, foam triggered the charges. The ground beneath the Drathi erupted. Not enough to kill, not even enough to maim, but plenty to throw them into complete chaos. Massive cracks splintered to the jungle floor, dislodging trees and sending several warriors tumbling. Their tight formation dissolved as they scrambled for footing. Then, from the trees, Jax pulled a switch, with a groan of tension releasing. The industrial cables he'd set up snapped forward like a massive whip, sweeping across the field, entangling several Drathi in its grasp. Their armored forms were yanked off their feet and dragged into a chaotic pile. And then the slingshot fired. Kip whooped as a repurposed mining drone, loaded with high-frequency sonic disruptors, hurtled through the air and detonated mid-flight. A shrieking, unbearable frequency blasted across the battlefield, just the right pitch to send Drathi neuroreceptors into overdrive. The warriors clutched their heads, their sensitive hearing overwhelmed. Jax peered over the barricade, impressed. So, basically, we just invented a sound grenade? Basically, Foam admitted. Rourke, watching the chaos unfold, nodded approvingly. I think they got the message. And yet, the Drathi leader remained standing, his burning gaze fixed on the humans. His warriors were disoriented, but not defeated. He exhaled a slow breath, then roared, the sound cutting through the air like rolling thunder. His troops staggered back to their feet, their momentary confusion turning to rage. Kip lowered their goggles. And now they're mad. Rourke tightened his jaw. Time for Phase 3. Foam arched an eyebrow. We have a Phase 3? A grin tugged at Rourke's lips. We do now. The Drathi were bleeding. Not from wounds. At least, not the kind they were used to. They had come expecting a straightforward battle, a test of strength and superior firepower. Instead, they had been met with chaos, exploding terrain, high-frequency sonic pulses. Industrial cables turned into battlefield tripwires. And now, something worse. Something that made no tactical sense at all. Rourke stood atop a supply crate, arms crossed, watching as the Drathi leader, War Commander Varric, pulled himself free from a collapsed tree trunk. The alien-scarred crimson scales glistened under Vega 4's twin suns, his reptilian eyes burning with something between rage and disbelief. His war bands were regrouping, staggered, disoriented, but still dangerous. They should be retreating, Foam murmured, adjusting her glasses as she monitored the battlefield sensors. They would be, Jack said, smirking, if they were sane. The Drathi were warriors to their very core. They did not flee from disorder. They crushed it, and that was the problem. All right, Rourke said, stretching his shoulders. Guess we escalate. Kip's grin widened. Weaponized stupid? Rourke clapped him on the shoulder. Weaponized stupid. Phase 3. Psychological warfare. The Drathi had something called a battle mind link, a rudimentary form of neural communication that allowed their war bands to share sensory input and emotional states. It made them terrifyingly coordinated in a fight. But what happened when you pumped pure, unfiltered human insanity into that network? Rourke turned to Foam. Is the transmitter ready? She nodded, expression hesitant. You're sure this will work? Nope, Kip said cheerfully, flipping a switch. A high-powered communication pulse surged across the battlefield, overriding the Drathi-S neural link with a direct data injection. For the first time in their evolutionary history, an entire Drathi warband experienced human internet culture in real time. Memes, existential paradoxes, randomized stand-up comedy routines, and, because Kip had absolutely no restraint, a deep-fake version of their own war commander singing an ancient human sea shanty. For a full 30 seconds, the Drathi warriors stood frozen, their minds flooded with pure nonsense. Some staggered, clutching their heads, overwhelmed by the sheer weaponized absurdity. War Commander Varric bared his fangs, fury twisting his reptilian features. He turned to his second-in-command, a burly Drathi with jagged green scales. "What is happening?" The subordinate opened his mouth, then stopped, blinked, and whispered, "Am I a joke to you?" Varric recoiled as if struck. The phrase, ripped from an ancient human meme, had somehow embedded itself in the Drathi warrior's psyche. Another warrior muttered something under his breath. It sounded suspiciously like, "What is love?" Varric snarled, "Focus! Purge this madness." But it was too late. Like a virus, the unhinged nature of human humor and paradoxical thinking was spreading through the Drathi-esque battle mind link, disrupting their coordination at a fundamental level. The rigid structure of their war bands fractured, warriors hesitating mid-charge, glancing at each other with uncertainty. Rourke watched the battlefield descend into confusion and turned to Jax. "You know what this means?" Jax grinned. "That we're officially the most annoying species in the galaxy?" "Damn right." And that was when the real fun started. The battlefield had gone eerily silent. Where there should have been a clash of weapons and the war cries of the Drathi, there was instead hesitation, confusion, and, somewhere in the back ranks, a lone, guttural voice whispering, "Never going to give you up." Rourke leaned against a supply crate, watching with grim amusement as the Drathi struggled against an enemy they could neither see nor understand. Human absurdity. "They're breaking," Foam murmured, eyes fixed on her scanner. "They don't even know how they're breaking," Jax added, barely holding back a laugh. It was true. The Drathi-esque disciplined warbands, once an unstoppable force, were unraveling under the weight of intrusive human thoughts. Some warriors were hesitating mid-charge, thrown into existential spirals. Others were looking at each other, as if questioning reality itself. The worst off simply stood there, whispering snippets of human nonsense into their comlinks. Rourke turned to Kip. "What exactly did you upload?" Kip shrugged innocently. "Oh, a little bit of everything. Memes, philosophy, a loop of an older sitcom laugh track. A few paradoxes just to spice things up, like, can Drathi warriors truly be strong if they doubt their own strength?" Rourke exhaled slowly. "You broke their brains." Kip grinned. "You're welcome." The final gambit. But War Commander Varric was not so easily undone. With a thunderous roar, the massive Drathi slammed his fist into ground, his bioelectric armor crackling as he fought off the invasive thoughts. His reptilian eyes blazed with fury as he pointed a clawed finger at Rourke. "Enough!" The mental confusion wavered. Some of his warriors, still reeling from the psychic onslaught of human stupidity, shook their heads and steadied their stances. The tide was shifting again. Varric took a step forward, towering over the battlefield, his voice an unshakable force of will. "You think this is war? This is mockery." He unsheathed a long, curved blade that hummed with plasma energy. "Fight me, warrior to warrior." Rourke sighed. The honorable dual gambit." Foam gave him a sidelong glance. "You're not actually going to." But Rourke was already stepping forward, rolling his shoulders. "We've come this far. Might as well finish this with a little diplomacy." Kip snorted. "If this is diplomacy, I'd love to see what you call war." The duel without a duel. Varric loomed over Rourke, muscles tense, his plasma blade casting an ominous glow. Rourke, hands on his hips, tilted his head. "Before we start, just to clarify, if I win, you leave Vega for alone?" Varric bared his fangs. "If you win." "Right." Rourke nodded. Then, very deliberately, he sat down. Varric scowled. "What is this?" "This?" Rourke gestured vaguely. "This is me winning." The war commander stiffened. You are mocking our traditions. No, I respect traditions, Rourke said casually. I just think maybe you don't understand how this works. The Drathi warriors shifted uneasily. Varric's honor-bound duel was a sacred challenge, an unbreakable test of strength. And yet, nowhere in their traditions did it say the human had to fight back. A few warriors exchanged glances, their battle minds still fraying at the edges. Varric snarled, "You refuse to fight?" "Oh, I'd fight, if it were necessary. But, see," Rourke leaned forward, voice lowering as if sharing a great secret. "I already beat you. The war commanders I twitched." Rourke pointed toward the battlefield. "Your warriors are second-guessing every step they take. Your mind link is infected with human nonsense. Your second-in-command just tried to define the concept of love in a combat scenario." He spread his hands. "And you, mighty war commander, are standing here arguing with a guy who isn't even armed." Varric's grip on his plasma blade tightened. "You think words are stronger than war?" Rourke smirked. "Against you? Looks like it." For a long, tense moment, the Drathi leader stood frozen. His battle mind flickered. His warriors, his entire force, waited for his command. And then, with something between fury and reluctant admiration, Varric let out a slow breath. He lowered his blade. Aftermath, humanity's new reputation. The retreat was swift. The Drathi war bands, still psychically reeling from their brush with human absurdity, withdrew from Vega, for without another word. Rourke watched them go, arms crossed. Fong exhaled in relief. "I can't believe that worked." "Oh, come on," Jax grinned. "It was genius." Kip stretched. "Think we just gave the Drathi an existential crisis?" "Oh, definitely," Rourke said. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the Drathi ships ascend into orbit. Then Feng's datapad buzzed. She frowned. "Incoming message from the Galactic Council." Rourke sighed. "Let me guess. They're mad." She skimmed the message, then blinked. "Actually, they're reevaluating the no firearms rule. Apparently, they never anticipated humans weaponizing ideas." Jax burst out laughing. "So they're scared of memes?" Kip leaned back, smug. "Damn right they are." Rourke smirked, watching the last of the Drathi disappear into space. "No guns," he murmured. "No problem.